Hi, welcome to all of you. It's a pleasure to have you today for our event on renewable marine energy. We have the chance to have different attendees from multiple countries, and I think it's a good sign that we need to tackle this subject globally. Today, we're going to have a great overview about different technologies and the business models also. I'm not going to be too long. I'm really happy to organize this event with my partner, SOA-DMEC. I'm actually part of Lehmann, which is the innovation and foresight platform of INCHI. Our goal is to identify key topics and try to gather the best experts to talk about it. It's what we've done today with the renewable marine energy. Actually, this event takes place on an event cycle. It's our second event. We're going to have another one in June about coastal resiliency. And I just have a quick message for the French attendees. Cet événement va être complètement en anglais. Dans quelques jours, nous aurons un replay avec des sous-titres en français. Vous le recevrez directement dans vos boîtes mail. Si vous voulez poser des questions, vous pouvez les poser en français. On s'occupera de les traduire en anglais. Vous pouvez utiliser le petit chat sur le côté, que vous soyez sur YouTube ou sur Swapcard. For the attendees who are following this event, if you want to ask a question, you can use the chat box, and we will be happy to have a quick session of Q&A at the end of the roundtable. So now I will let Benjamin introduce himself and SOA, and have a great event.
Thank you, Ludivine. It's a real pleasure doing this event with you several years after we met in person in San Francisco. So my name is Ben Message, and I represent Sustainable Ocean Alliance. I'm located in France. I'm in charge of partnerships and coordinating SOA activities in Europe. For those who are not familiar with SOA, we are a non-profit organization headquartered in San Francisco and launched in 2014. And we have supported and accelerated several hundreds of solutionists across the globe, 222 to be precise, including 45 ocean tech startups through our two flagship programs, that are the Ocean Leadership Program and the Ocean Solutions Accelerator. We are very happy to do this series of events with our partner Leonard, as well as with the Dutch Marine Energy Center, represented today by Yuki, that I am happy to introduce as a moderator of that event. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Benjamin and Ludivine. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Yuki Esser, and marine energy has actually only been recently on my mind for a bit over a year now. My background is in bioinformatics, but as a sailor, I witnessed the enormous power of the swell and wind firsthand. So I found it so interesting that I started working at the Dutch Marine Energy Center as a business and innovation advisor. And DMAC is the accelerator for marine energy solutions. And a big part of our work is helping developers with their solutions and engaging with policymakers and investors and look for market opportunities. But a very important part is also that we help big corporations get into marine energy and help them understand why marine energy is the next big thing in energy. And that is why I'm really, really happy to be here today and be part of this event. And also that all the listeners and participants are also all here. So thank you so much. And I hope we can give you a sneak peek today into why marine energy is important, what is happening in the field, and why you should be involved. And so before we start with the roundtable discussion, I will quickly set the scene, because I can imagine that marine energy might not be so well known for all of you. So marine energy is energy from our oceans, our rivers, and our seas. And this can be wave or tidal energy, but we can also harness energy from salinity gradients or even from temperature differences in the ocean. And we call this ocean thermal energy conversion, or OTEC. So we have wave, tidal, salinity gradient, and OTEC, but we're also very close friends with offshore floating solar and wind. So who better to discuss this with than the four experts in the field. And at our virtual roundtable, I cannot see them yet, but at our virtual roundtable, I'm very happy to have here today Irina Luc, the division manager of Omexon, Marcus Lehmann, co-founder and CEO of Ecowavepower, Rita Sousa, partner at Faber Ocean, and Robert Cavagnaro from the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. Welcome all at our roundtable. Can you hear me and see me? I see Marcus here. Hi, good to see you.
Yeah, hello everyone.
And Rita, hi.
Hi.
And Robert, welcome.
Hello.
And then we're still waiting on Irina. Perfect. Welcome. Welcome to the roundtable. So I already introduced myself. I thought it would be nice to start with a round of introductions. Irina, maybe you can start.
Yeah, sure. Yes, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure joining this roundtable. Irina Luc is my name. I'm managing director of Omexon Offshore. We are a service provider for the entire life cycle of an offshore power plant. We are first movers. We started in 2006, and we have seen the industry development from pure engineering imagination to today's state of the art. Ourselves, we have built 3 offshore wind farms and have about 4 gigawatts under technical management during the operation phase.
Perfect. Thank you, Irina, and thank you for being here at the roundtable. And as you already said, Irina will be speaking from the industry point of view. Marcus, if you could introduce yourself next.
Yeah, hello everyone. Marcus Lehmann, co-founder CEO of Ecowavepower Technologies. We are a wave energy technology provider coming out of the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab in California. And we have currently a pilot unit operational in California for about 8 months, which has been really exciting. And we're also lined up for PuckWave, which is a new 20 megawatt wave farm under construction in Oregon.
Nice. Very interested to hear more about your technology also during the pitch sessions, because Marcus will also be pitching during the pitch sessions after the roundtable. And during the roundtable, we will be hearing from him with his entrepreneurial hat on, so to say. Rita, can you go next with this short introduction?
Sure. My name is Rita. I'm a partner of the Ocean and Climate Tech Fund at Faber, which is a VC firm based out of Lisbon that has been investing since 2013 and with a specialist focused on deep tech and early stage. So I'm partner of the Ocean and Climate Tech Fund within Faber. That is a recent fund launched in January. It's a 40 million euros fund launched with 32 in January to invest in early stage deep tech startups, aiming for positive impact on ocean sustainability, climate action, and decarbonization of the global economy.
Thank you. Thank you. And very happy to hear your investor and financial point of view today. And last but not least, Robert, can you introduce yourself?
Thanks. I'm Rob Cavagnaro. I'm a mechanical engineer and team lead at Pacific Northwest National Lab. PNNL is one of 17 U.S. Department of Energy research laboratories. We have a big portfolio in marine energy research, from environmental monitoring to technology development to support for industry. I'm so happy to join today.
Thank you. Robert will be speaking from the technological perspective. And when we're talking about technology, I want to dive straight into the first question to you, Robert. And for the audience, please don't forget that you can ask your questions also in the chat box for after the roundtable. But my question to Robert, can you perhaps explain to us in a nutshell why there are so many different marine energy technologies?
Sure. So it's a really exciting field to be in because it's not just a single resource. Marine energy
as you mentioned, is wave energy, tidal energy, ocean current energy, and then salinity and thermal gradients. And why there's so many different technologies, because all those resources, they're governed by very different physics. So for current energy harvesting, like tidal or ocean current, it works very much the same way as wind. So a lot of the concepts look similar to wind turbines, but they're adapted for a denser working fluid and a much harsher working environment. So wave devices, they also show a really large diversity of technologies, because there are a lot of different ways to capture energy from waves. You can capture energy from the up and down motion, the side to side motion. You can compress an air chamber or fill a pool. And all these different designs, they can be either near shore, far from shore, they can be in shallow water, deep water. So all these different aspects dictate the types of technology solutions that'll work in these different environments. And then when we're talking about OTEC and salinity gradient, those are, again, completely different technologies, and they may require things like deep water pipes to bring up cold water to the surface, or specialized membranes to get power out of the gradients in salinity, so chemical potential gradients. So lots of different physics involved, so lots of different solutions.
Yeah, really interesting. And we will hear some of these solutions during the pitches later on. And I'm wondering to the whole group, if you're hearing about all these different technologies, what do you think the potential is for marine energy in 2030 or maybe even 2050 from your point of view? Marcus, maybe as an entrepreneur, we can start with you, but all please feel free to jump in.
Yeah, maybe I'm wearing my industry association hat. We're part of the U.S. National Hydro Association, Marine Energy Council, as well as Ocean Energy Europe. And I think both of these industry associations for US and Europe, they target multi-megawatt farms for wave and tidal energy, and recognize the potential of up to 30% of primary electricity demand for both of these regions could be served from marine energy.
Nice. Irina, is it also something that you're seeing?
Absolutely. I mean, the potential is enormous. You mentioned a lot of things, but also having those large areas where you can have floating PV, and we've just been part of a R&D project for airborne kites. So also a lot of things are possible. I'm always a little bit afraid now that this does not become a hype. Now we have conquered onshore wind, we have conquered PV and whatsoever. So we need to find a good balance, not to exploit too much, especially when we talk about commodities, any kind of gases or other commodities. But in general, it's huge opportunities, and unfortunately we discovered those too late.
Thanks. And Rita, can you maybe dive into that as well? And sorry, but maybe if you move your notebook, I don't know what it is. We can hear it very loudly. So just to be sure, maybe it's coming from a different one.
Oh, that's well. I bring the VC perspective, of course, and the market analysis, and I think that it's interesting just to put on the table some numbers of what it can represent, and what these sectors already represent in terms of size and expected growth. With the offshore wind energy market estimated to represent $87 billion by 2026, growing in the past few years at a compound annual growth rate of 13%, and also growth rate of wave and tidal energy estimated to grow at a higher level, estimated around 40%, and with being valued already at between $3 to $5 billion market size. So there's huge market opportunity, huge opportunity as well for these innovative and early stage startups to put forward their innovations and technologies and businesses with innovative business models as well, serving the market expectations and the higher market demand for this type of solutions. So I'm very confident that these numbers will definitely represent the market in a few years' time.
Robert, is that also how you're feeling?
I think in addition to the large grid side of things, I really think we're going to see marine energy technologies playing a larger role in powering stuff that happens in the ocean. So as we expand our economic activities, as the shipping industry becomes electrified, I think marine energy has a very large role to play in powering those ocean economy end-use applications. And I also see it as playing a role in large-scale climate remediation, so powering large-scale CO2 removal technologies and other ways to use the ocean to help us tackle climate change.
It's very interesting to hear from all of you that you all think that there is a potential in marine energy, and that these perspectives are also so different, and that there's such a huge potential for the whole utility scale, but also the specialized markets that are going on. And I'm wondering, Irina, if you compare this to the developments that offshore wind has gone through. Rita already mentioned some numbers, but what do you think marine energy can learn from the offshore wind sector?
Well, I'm not quite sure if the industry marine energy should learn. I think everyone should learn how to tackle this value potential industry. And personally, I believe that politics and society have to set clear goals. So if we aim for climate change, if that is our main goal, then we have to make sacrifices. Economy, shipping, environmental protection, animal welfare, navy, and so on, will have to step back a bit. And if I truly believe marine energy is one of the most promising and valuable next level energy or potentials that we have. So whenever I talk to various stakeholders, it might sound a little bit pathetic, but I always ask, what is the euro worth if you cannot buy a salmon with it because there are no salmons anymore? Or why protect a single dolphin if the sea gets too warm for marine mammals in general? So no matter how the setting is, no matter how the marine energy shall develop, first, we need to start as early as possible to discuss priorities and to discuss co-use in an open-minded way, but always with the same goal. So if marine energy wants to reach the next level and become what I truly believe, become a serious and natural industry, then we shouldn't make the mistake we did with offshore wind, only going from try and error to a thing that we have clear goals and define those and follow those goals.
And I completely agree on that. And if you talk about these shared goals, can you maybe elaborate a bit on how to talk to the greater public about these goals and how to actually involve them in these changes? It's probably a hard question to.
It's a difficult question because it's not my answer. It's the answer of politicians. To be honest about it, I mean, moving on the way we did in the last 50 years, you know where we are right now. Looking at the 80s, this very famous Club of Rome has mentioned what is going to happen if we don't change our daily lives. No one listened because politicians and also economists tend to think in 5-year periods. And people are just tired of hearing everything is going to go bad, but nothing happens. But sooner or later, and we see it today, I mean, I live in the northwest of Germany. It is very typical to have a lot of rain here during spring. It has not rained since early April. But people just tend to ignore it. So what can we do is being honest and say that we have to make sacrifices, that what we had in the past, we will see that and we can keep that, but on a reduced level. If everyone wants to be wealthy and healthy, and it's not going to work. And that is difficult for a politician to convince people who don't take the time to listen or to think about the consequences.
Yeah. Marcus, is this also something that you're experiencing as an entrepreneur?
Certainly, we're seeing a strong, I think COVID and now the energy crisis in Europe with Ukraine certainly been a wake-up call. And yeah, you will hear it in my presentation that software alone will not change the flow of primary energy that is still predominantly fossil fuel based in the major economies in the world. And so that energy has to come from somewhere, and everyone is waiting for a magic silver bullet that has been under development for many years, but with fusion and others. But I think we also have to start tap into all other available resources, especially baseload. And in terms of learnings, I see there are enormous synergies, and I have a slide on that, especially in Europe and now in the US, where offshore wind is approaching that the entire supply chain from all three phases of a life cycle of a technology, from development to then actual manufacturing, construction, as well as then maintenance and operation, that there are existing supply chains from offshore wind that we can tap into. And we at Cowave, we've actually designed our technology from the beginning exactly with that in mind, that we can tap into existing supply chains and already benefit from the cost curves that brought the cost down for all parts along the life cycle of the technology.
Yeah, so from Cowave, you're actually collaborating a lot with other sectors, as it seems. Are there sectors you wish you could collaborate more with?
I think, as mentioned, we see an enormous potential. I think there are about 120 gigawatt of offshore wind currently installed and planned, and with 40 to 50% capacity factor, that means there's about 60 gigawatt of excess capacity available globally. And so that's an enormous amount of cable that is not being used. And so I think it will be very important for the offshore wind developers to plan ahead and anticipate when marine energy, wave and tidal, but mostly wave, is really ready for utility scale farms, because there's an enormous opportunity in co-locating them and putting them on the same export infrastructure. By that, significantly increasing the capacity factor, reducing the payoff time of the cable, and then having all these synergies from spare parts to maintenance that can be done is very similar for both technologies.
Thanks. Yeah, and I also heard Irina mention this co-use. Are you already working on that from the industry perspective in wind parks? What is the field looking like right now?
And sorry, was that for me?
Sorry, Irina, is this question? Yeah.
Well, the co-use is right now is difficult. We started that discussion too late, and now we see that at least in Germany, we have just increased our goals for offshore wind to a large amount. And we a year ago we were talking about maybe 20 gigawatts, maybe 15 until 2030, 2035. Now we are talking about 30 gigawatts until 2030, and 45 and 70 gigawatts until 2045. Very large numbers. And then there's the military or the Navy. There's the shipping. There's fishing. There's, of course, environmental areas. And now everyone is sitting there and trying, yeah, you can do what you want, but not in my backyard.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to work. And of course, offshore wind has developed and has become an industry now talk to a large utility and say, I'm sorry, you cannot build an offshore wind farm and earn money because there is rarely seen bird flying. I don't care about the bird. So I'm making fun of it, but it's indeed that co-use discussion. We started too late, and it's at least my personal opinion as offshore wind industry, we started too late to discuss it and make sacrifices. It has started, and I think it's still workable, but nevertheless, there's already a lot of frustration on for a lot of stakeholders.
I can imagine that, and I think it would be good to focus on this positive aspect, that it's still possible, but that we really have to incorporate all these different stakeholders and really look at this shared goal that we have. I also heard you mention Not in My Backyard. And Robert, maybe you can tell us a bit more about how do you say that? The key selling points of marine energy and why, for example, that they're invisible could help in this whole discussion.
Yeah, for a number of the technologies, they may actually be underwater. So for tidal turbines, ocean current turbines, those would certainly be submerged at a site. There are certainly environmental concerns around all these types of technologies. There's a lot of research going on to see if that's actually the case. But because there have been so few actual deployments of large-scale devices, it's hard for regulators to know, and they ask a lot of questions. So I think the industry needs to do a better job of convincing everybody that these are good and safe technologies, and a lot of that has to do with sharing information across developments, across countries, and we're really working together to show the benefits of it, and that they are safe to the environment. I know in the US, at least, the offshore wind industry has been seriously hampered by that whole not in my backyard sentiment. And I think there's a lot to learn from the offshore wind industry when we're talking about marine energy in the US.
Yeah. And do you have an idea on how to really showcase the potential benefits and really the advantages of marine energy?
I think we really need to show that, first of all, the technology works, that it's providing real value to the markets that it's serving, whether it's the utility grid or whether it's for powering some of these offshore applications. I think one of the biggest ways to do that is to take it to places where the cost of energy is already very high, and to show that yes, you can get your electricity from the river that's adjacent to your village. Showing those cases where it has the ability to greatly impact people's lives in some of these remote communities, and people like these kinds of stories. And when they see those successes, I think they'll be more accepting of larger scale technology.
Thanks. Rita, is that also something that you are seeing from the financial perspective?
Well, definitely. So within the fund, we, as I mentioned in the beginning, we invest in deep tech and early stage for these innovative companies that are developing solutions with high impacts on the ocean sustainability and climate action. So the purpose is really to contribute to the decarbonization of the economy. And we have different verticals within the fund, and one of them is focused on the enabling technologies for the development of all offshore renewables. Mainly, we focus on the enabling technologies that will be potentially enabling the increase of the efficiency, the durability, longevity, lower the environmental impact of the different solutions, their infrastructures. And so this is the type of solutions and technologies that we're looking at. We are looking and we see a lot of these technologies, since we're mostly focused in the early stages, so we invest in pre-seed, seed tickets, early Series A, with tickets that can range from 100K to 1 million, 1.5 million. We tend to focus on these less capital intensive technologies, and those enabling technologies for the development of the different technologies that we're just mentioning, wind offshore, floating solar, wave, etc. So these are the main technologies that we're currently seeing and that we're currently having in the pipeline at European level. So we have a higher focus in Europe, being a fund based out of Portugal. We do see a lot of companies in this space in Portugal, but with a broad perspective globally. And there's another aspect that is important for us. So we have to look at those technologies that are at technology readiness level that are, of course, a little bit more advanced because of the time to market and lifetime of the fund, which is standard with any fund. So we need to look at technologies that are that we can. And I'm talking about the technologies, but at the end of the day, what is most valuable for us is, alongside the technology, is also the team of the companies that are bringing these technologies up to market. So we need to we want to help these teams, from the stage where they're developing their technologies, testing first pilots, testing the technologies, and getting first customers. So that's exactly the space where we are, and where we can provide our support and our added value throughout the expertise of the team, of our network as well, and of course the settings that we know best. I just would like to provide an initial information which is really relevant. We are an impact fund, meaning that we look at the companies that from an environmental impact perspective can of course contribute more to climate change. And this is an important aspect of the technologies that we evaluate, the ones that can really have more meaningful and measurable environmental KPIs. So
yeah, really nice to hear that there is so much going on also in this part of the field. Marcus, if you hear this as an entrepreneur, is this something that you also had when setting up your company, or is this really a recent push?
Certainly, yeah. Starting a new venture in the deep tech requires, of course, excellent and world-class technology development, but then also all the software aspects, from team building and recruiting, and then growing, maturing the business in new areas, where in the beginning you really just start with technology, and then you have to branch out and develop all these little departments where, with 5 people, we don't have a PR department and a recruiting department and an HR department. That's then usually all combined into one role or shared roles. So I think for us that has really organically formed over the years, and we got really fortunate to be supported by a program that is coming out of ARPA-E embedded in the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, called Cyclotron Road, and they specifically saw a gap there. They provided very generous seed funding of $500,000 in the beginning in 2014-15, and then mentorship, as well as was a PI in the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. So that helped us really to also form the initial team, bring in a larger pool of talent, and then really see which of these are entrepreneurial material, essentially. And then kind of we had a really strong reset of the company then at the end of 16, after we also contested in US Wave Energy Prize. So that was a really strong practice that really helped us to forge the team, next to, of course, the technological evolution we've went through and helped us to arrive at the scalable solution we have today. And so I think reaching out to these support mechanisms, and I think that's been recognized now, and a lot of great programs regionally. Often they tend to be more in the digital space because there's more money to be made, or easier money to be made. So it's great to see that there are also more investors specifically focusing on the impact and the deep tech space. And of course, we're seeing a lot of money flowing into the software impact space. And it brings me back to exactly that energy chart that might help to remove some inefficiencies in the system, but it's not going to change the primary energy use. So I think the really big impact, and the IPCC really highlighted that the really big impact on climate change will come from reduction of fossil fuel, and that can only be achieved with more renewable energy and actual energy generation in that space, and not so much shifting software solutions around. That can only get us so far.
Yeah, thanks. We're almost already at the end of the roundtable. I can speak with you for hours on this. I find it very interesting to hear all of your point of view. But I thought to have one final question and then have a wrap up. So Robert, I was still wondering if this push forward is also something that you see from the research and technological perspective, and what is happening in the fields there.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of great research going on, and it's shared between startup companies like CalWave, academia. There are lots of universities that are active in development of marine technology and sort of the ancillary technology that goes around that. Action on the regulatory front, working with environmental monitoring agencies, those that are tasked with making sure that we don't harm the environment that we're working in, and then national labs like the one I'm a part of also play a big role. And I think it's really important for this type of technology development to have strong government industry partnerships, and also recognize the fact that a lot of the technology development starts with government investment, and that needs to be maintained and sustained to bring these new technologies to market. So I think there's a lot of investment from the government side that's happening, but it needs to continue. And it would really be great if that was not linked to political whims. So I think more consistent investment from governments will be required to keep this moving forward, to get it over the hump to a place where it is more like offshore wind.
Perfect. I think it's a very good bridge to my final question to all of you, and it actually comes back a bit to the first question where I asked you about the potential of marine energy. So I thought it would also be nice to end with that. So I would like to start with Rita and then go through all of you. And that you can explain what the 3 steps are that you think need to be taken to scale up marine energy and reach our sustainability goals. Rita, go ahead.
Well, I would say that I totally agree that there's a lack of public funding, but I would definitely think that another step would be, of course, bringing additional specialty private funding and VC funding to back the new generation of these of the entrepreneurs that are bringing out these solutions to the market. There's a huge market gap in terms of funding, specialty funding in VC, to be able to bring these, help and support, bring the technologies from pilot to market, and support the teams in this step. And I think that blended mechanisms could also be a second step there. And finally, I definitely think that facilitating the navigation of the regulatory framework would be a third step into enabling and as a driver for to scale up the marine energy solutions. So I think that this would be a final step that would definitely be very needed.
Thank you. Marcus, can you give us your 3 steps that we need to take to scale up marine energy?
Certainly funding is a critical element of it to allow more demonstrations. Often these small businesses struggle with the private capital section. So that was already highlighted that, if a pilot costs 10 million and it's at a 50-50 cost share, then as a startup, it can be very challenging to find that much funding. So that public-private partnerships that allow technology demonstrations. Then alongside that, really finding the financial mechanisms to incentivize early adoption. So providing, in the US, I'm more familiar with the Loan Guarantee Office, for example. So finding market mechanisms that allow project financing of earlier stage technologies that help to bridge the gap, because the traditional project financing would only come in with a very mature technology at very large, 100 million plus farms kind of scales. And so there's kind of that gray zone, and similar alongside that, finding market incentives to really incentivize the first, 500 megawatt, first 1 gigawatt. And so I think the big value marine energy has is that we can produce at times where no one else can, at night, at winter times. So we're seeing a lot of progress in carbon markets, for example, that sometimes create a very strange market incentive to actually produce more fossil fuels to then have more carbon offsets to be sold and so on. So having, I guess, more lower hanging fruit economic incentives that allow and create a market pull for technologies that can produce at night and winter times, and giving that a price tag that will be very valuable.
Thanks. Irina, if you can go next with 3 steps.
Sure. First of all, most important is having a European commitment for an energy transition. Not every European country, but Europe. And then setting goals with a clear roadmap that is thought from the end. So what's the goal we want to reach, and go from there, and not starting what could we do until 2040, and then stick to it. It's very easy, just stick to it, follow that roadmap. And I've seen in 16 years offshore wind ups and downs, and stop offshore wind and extend it and so on. So following a clear roadmap as a European community is personally for me most important. Money is there, engineering, art is there.
Perfect. Robert?
For me, the three big things are the technology demonstration. We need to demonstrate the long-term viability and reliability of these machines. I also think it's important for continued focus on energy transitions as well, especially for rural and other remote communities. And then, continued funding. So very similar to what everybody else was saying today.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you all so much. I personally also learned a lot again from all of your perspectives. I think it's really clear we need a common goal that we need to work to, and a roadmap that we have to stick to. And then there are other components that come into play, like public and private funding, but also financial mechanisms and market pool. And I hope that there are a lot of listeners today that will also help us in this transition. And speaking about the participants, I am going to check if we have any questions from the audience. Let me see. I have one very interesting question. It's, I think, meant for the whole group, but if this event was organized again next year, what would you hope to be able to tell us? Is there any one of you that want to comment on that? Or maybe Irina, you can, you are not
It would be great to see that the first concepts have been created for an energy grid, a European energy grid.
Perfect. And Robert?
I think it would be great to say, yeah, a device that went in the water last year is still functioning. To talk more about success stories.
Yeah, focus on the success stories. I like that. Marcus.
Yeah, financial mechanism to incentivize new generation technology to help resiliency and full transition to 100% renewables.
Yeah. Rita, do you have anything to add on this great list?
Pretty similar to Marcus' comment. So I would be very happy to see increased percentage of VC financing into marine energy solutions.
Perfect. Let me see. I think this is a great way to end the round table. We will then now go to the pitch sessions, and if you still have questions that pop up later in your then please feel free to still leave them at the question box, and we will try to connect you to the right person afterwards. So I would like to thank all of you very much for this interesting discussion, and I hope we can in the future talk more about it, and maybe even at a future event talk about all these successes that then hopefully have happened. And to keep this positive note going, we will now go to the pitches, and we will give the floor to 4 marine energy developers who will each pitch their solution and talk about why their solution will help in this energy transition. I don't know if the pitchers are already here. And if so, we will start with Isaac Rubenstein from Ecowavepower. Hi, I can see you there. Perfect. So Isaac is a business development professional at Ecowavepower. And Ecowavepower is a leading wave energy company that developed patented, smart and cost-efficient technology for turning oceans and sea wave into green electricity. Well, that sounds very promising. Isaac, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Yuki. Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone, for the amazing roundtable. It was really interesting. So I'm going to share here my screen. Let me see. Okay. So yeah, as kindly introduced by Yuki, my name is Isaac Rubenstein. I'm a business development professional at Ecowavepower. Ecowavepower is an innovative Israeli company that was founded in 2011, and the company has developed an innovative technology to produce clean and affordable electricity from ocean and sea waves. And so today I would like to tell you a bit more about our technology, about our company, and how do you think that wave energy will be a significant part of the energy transition? So the first question, of course, is why wave energy? And well, wave energy has a lot of advantages. First, a simple geographical advantage. Over half of the population lives within 200 kilometers of a coast. So most of the global population lives close to a coastline. Therefore, of course, producing energy in such locations require less infrastructure and less transmission costs in general. In addition, In addition, wave energy is more stable and more predictable than other renewable sources, such as solar and wind, for example, and the power of the waves does not go away with the sun or with the clouds. In most suitable places, wave energy can be produced around the clock. In addition, the wave energy has a higher energy density in comparison with other renewable sources. For example, wave energy has 832 times the kinetic energy of wind, for example. So that means that we can produce the same amount of energy with significantly less space required. And in addition, the potential is immense. According to the World Energy Council, wave energy can provide twice the amount of electricity that the world produces now, representing an over 1 trillion euro market. So the question is, if wave energy has all those advantages, the question is why it has not been commercialized yet. And the reason for that is that the industry, the wave energy industry until now, have been struggling to commercialize because most developers are looking for install on the offshore. And okay, of course, the waves are higher on the offshore, but it's more difficult to commercialize as these systems are really expensive and complex. It's really they require the use of ships, divers, underwater cabling for simple basic operation and maintenance activities. So it's really expensive and complex. In addition, these systems they're also exposed to really like harsh environments where waves can achieve up to 20 meters and completely destroy the system. Also, the hydraulics and the electrical companies are more exposed to the water and to the offshore environment. And because due to these reasons, it's more difficult to obtain suitable insurance for these power stations. And they have some of them, depending, they have a negative environmental impact because the offshore systems, they need to be attached to the ocean floor. So they create a new presence in the ocean and can disturb marine life. So due to these reasons, the wave energy field has been struggling to commercialize its technologies because they're mostly located on the offshore environment. Ecowavepower has taken a completely different approach, developing a unique technology which is located onshore. So we basically we install our system on existing structures on the shoreline, and only the floaters are located on the water. All the electrical and hydraulic components are located on land, just like a regular power station. So how does our technology work? We basically attach our floaters to existing structures on the shoreline, such as piers, jetties, and breakwaters. The floaters move up and down with the movement of the waves, compressing biodegradable hydraulic fluid. This creates pressure in a land-located accumulator, which is used to turn a hydraulic motor, which then turns an electric generator, producing 100% clean electricity and sending it to the grid. Our technology is fully patented, including a unique patent for our storm protection mechanism, which I'll also show later. So with this technology, Ecowavepower has been able to overcome the difficulties of the offshore systems that I have mentioned, developing a solution that has zero environmental impact because we don't need to attach our floaters, we don't need to attach our system to the ocean floor, so it does not create any new presence in the ocean, it does not disturb marine life. In addition, the technology is cost efficient as we utilize existing infrastructure, significantly reducing capex, the initial investment required for the project, as well as the operation and the OPEX, the operation and maintenance costs, as we don't require ships, divers, underwater cabling for daily operations. We can do all these the operation and maintenance activities from the land side. And also the technology is reliable. Since only the floaters are located on the water, all the electrical and hydraulic components are located on land, isolated from the harsh marine environment. Actually, in this video, we can also see our storm protection mechanism in action, which automatically raises the floaters into the upper position in the case of a storm, protecting the system against any damages. And due to all those reasons, all the Ecowavepower power stations are fully insurable by global insurance companies in accordance with market standards. With this technology, Ecowavepower has been able to achieve significant milestones in a short period of time. In the beginning, in 2011, Ecowavepower performed detailed studies and wave tank testing to really optimize the design and the shape of our floaters and our system. And then in 2014, Ecowavepower installed a power station in the port of Jaffa in Israel. And this power station is currently being expanded in a partnership with EDF Renewables, a subsidiary of the French National Electrical Company. And we have also established a strategic partnership with Siemens, who is responsible for all the electrical subsystem and grid connection of the power stations. This project has been recognized by the Ministry of Energy of Israel as a pioneering technology, and the Ministry of Energy also contributed with part of the funding for the project. Then in 2016, Ecowavepower installed a power station in Gibraltar, which is the only wave energy power station in the world that is connected to the grid under a power purchase agreement that we have with the government of Gibraltar, a PPA of 5 megawatts with the government. And this project has received funding from the European Regional Development Fund and from the Horizon 2020 programs. So now that the technology has been widely tested and proven, Ecowavepower is rapidly expanding its global pipeline of projects towards commercialization, having secured more than 325 megawatts of projects in the pipeline worldwide. And this goes from projects at the more earlier stage of development to projects at a more advanced stage. For example, such as our project that we are currently developing in Portugal, that we have recently entered into a concession agreement with the port of Leixões for the development of an up to 20 megawatt power station in the port. And we are already finalizing the licensing stage for the first stage of the project. So our goal is really to see the Ecowavepower technology implemented in basically any location in the world that has a breakwater. Our company and our technology have also been featured on the main media channels. For example, the Wall Street Journal has recently published an article stating that Ecowavepower is one of the bets for the future of renewable energy. And our technology has also, and our company have been recognized by several major global institutions. For example, the Sustainable Markets Initiative by the Prince Charles. Also, our technology has been labeled as an efficient solution by the Solar Impulse Foundation. And also, for example, the United Nations has been awarded, Ecowavepower has been awarded from the United Nations the Climate Action Award during COP26. So we are really, really excited with the future of Ecowavepower. So here we're opening to you an opportunity to join us in our journey. And we're always open to discussing potential partnerships for the development and implementation of our wave energy projects. And we're really, really happy to be changing the world one wave at a time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isaac. It's a wonderful presentation. Really nice to see what you're doing. And that you're changing the future one wave at a time. It's a perfect slogan. Our next speaker is Roy Issa. He's a project manager from Geocean. And Geocean is a French EPCI contractor with more than 35 years of experience in developing projects worldwide for marine and offshore industries. Geocean is actually part of the organizer of this event, the Vinci Group. And Roy has been managing Geocean SWEC projects in French Polynesia. So Roy, the floor is yours. Roy, you're on mute.
Hello?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you, Yuki. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'm very happy to be here today representing the Geocean and the solution we've been working on, which is called the seawater air conditioning, short for SWAC. So basically, SWAC is a green and sustainable, efficient cooling method that does not produce energy as electricity, but it serves in preserving and saving energy while producing cooling, which is a need in lots of places on this earth, as you know. And especially from the projections we have from the International Energy Agency, we know that in the next 30 years, the need for cooling is going to triple. So that's a worldwide need represented in electrical consumption. And this solution that we've worked on and already implemented on projects worldwide is used to absorb a big part of this need for specific clients that are next to bodies of water. And as we've seen previously, that represents a lot of people around this planet. So again, the numbers speak for themselves. The cooling outlook is pretty aggressive in a lot of areas of the world that are in need of expansion, and population growth will bring on need for cooling, and as things go today, need of electricity, because the main way that cooling is generated is using the electrical grid. So that's on one part. On the other part, the problem is that the standard cooling solution, which are air conditioners, basically chillers and others, but even chillers, which are the best in class, have efficiency ratios of around 3 or 4 for the average, whereas the SWAC, which I'll present just the slide after that, is 10-fold more than that. So it's an efficiency ratio of 60 in medium. So that's 10 times more efficiency than the normal solutions we have today. So what is SWAC? Basically, a SWAC is the concept is pretty easy to understand. All around this Earth, we have cold temperature, which is available in water in depths that are ranging between 700 to 900 meters, depending on the ocean. And if we can pump this water and circulate it in an open or closed loop, then we can use it to generate cooling in the client's building. So in a very easy way, we install this infrastructure, which is the pipeline and all the heat exchangers and the cooling loop needed to pump the water into the client's building. And then that cold water generates cooling. The water itself is heated back up to the temperature of the water on the surface, and then it's rejected back in the sea. So the same water, without any other treatment, is coming in cold and then coming back at the surface temperature. It's a technology which is proven because it has already been implemented, and so clients of ours are using it since 10 years now. It requires a body of water which is nearby the cooling need, so it's perfectly adapted for islands specifically. And it's, as we'll see, it's economical in the sense that once the infrastructure is installed, the return on investment is pretty quick for an infrastructure of this size, and environmentally friendly on several aspects, be it the fact that it doesn't disturb the marine life. The interference with marine life is pretty minimal. There's no visual disruption because everything is below water or buried on the beach, and the interventions on the beach are not more aggressive than normal beach infrastructures. So why SWAC also? When we calculate the need for cooling, so we see that it's focalized in these areas, and specifically within these areas on the globe, around the tropics, islands struggle to generate clean electricity. So most of the electricity generated on island for now are highly carbonated. If we take as an example in France, speaking top of my head, 70% of the French mainland electricity is generated by nuclear. You can debate if it's clean or not, but it's not carbonated. Well, in French outer territories, which are islands in Caribbean or in the Pacific, it's 70% more or less carbonated. So even for countries that are European, islands represents a specific challenge. And this technology, which is helps preserve the electricity and doesn't and saves basically the need to fabricate it, helps especially islands and isolated areas that are not interconnected to a grid that is decarbonated. So these are our main targets, and the projects that we have been involved on are mainly mainly focused in the Pacific area, so French Polynesia, and on the Indian Ocean, La Réunion, the island of La Réunion. I'll take a practical example on a project that we've delivered recently. So it's the fit up of the hospital, as you can see it on the upper left picture. The hospital of Papeete in French Polynesia has switched from normal cooling to cooling by deep water air conditioning, so deep water pipes. And we delivered this project last year. A couple of figures, so just we can see what we're talking about here. The pipeline length is 4 kilometers, so it's pretty short for an infrastructure of this type. And that's on the intake, and a couple of 100 meters on the outfall. So the pipeline going back with the heated up water, which matches the water temperature where it's being discharged. And then, so these type of projects, we can design them from the feed to the delivery, construction, and then the maintenance until passing it back to the client to ensure the maintenance on the duration of the life of the project. This infrastructure, one of the big advantages that it's the longevity is pretty big. It's around 30 to 50 years with minimal maintenance. That does require every 2 years some subsea maintenance, but most of the operations are done onshore. The pumping operations are done onshore. And practically speaking, to talk about some figures, we've already deployed the solution for 3 clients with tangible return on their saving, be it environmental. So the hospital of French Polynesia is expected, it's first year of operation now, so it's expected to be saving around 5,000 tons of CO2 emissions, around 12 gigawatt hours of electricity per year. That is not being so, that's removed from the grid of Tahiti because of this technology. And other clients, which are more hotels, are doing the same, are already operating it since 2012. And the most recent one, we just delivered it last week. And this solution has been deployed now in places like French Polynesia, which are very stringent on the environmental aspect and protection of marine life, without any negative feedback during the operation or the design or the construction period. So we are very confident that it can be deployed everywhere worldwide where the need is, so where we need cooling and where the potential lies, so where we have access to oceans with high benefit on the environmental and cost aspect and low impact on the marine life where we pump the resource. So I might have gone quicker than expected, Yuki, but I'll be happy to take any commentaries afterwards. I'll give you back the mic.
Thank you so much, Roy. Really interesting to hear about this technology and to hear about all the work that you're already doing. And SWOC is actually part of the entrepreneurship of Leonard. So it's really nice to have you here at this event.
And we're happy to have Leonard help us also.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. And for everyone that has questions or want to check out more, there are the booths of all the speakers, so you can get in contact with Roy over there. And our next speaker is Marcus Lehmann, who we already met during the roundtable. And he will now tell you more about his technology. So finally, talking more about CallWave. Very interested to hear about what you have to present and what CallWave is doing. Marcus, the floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Yuki, and let me know, can you, there you go, share the screen. Can you see that well here?
I cannot see it's loading. Yes, I see the presentation, but not in presenter mode yet.
Okay. Perfect. Does that work?
Yes, but we can also see the note, so it's not.
Then I'll just leave it. So yeah, I have an external screen.
All right.
Great. Yeah. Thanks again. And Mark Seaman, co-founder, CEO of Ecowavepower Technologies. We're based in Oakland, California, and have European subsidiaries. And as mentioned earlier, that's really the harsh reality of large-scale electricity and energy flow, where the majority is still coming from fossil fuel. And as of now, it does not look like a rapid change will take place here unless we really start to adopt more forms of renewable energy as quick as we can. And California is a great example where already about 30% of solar, we see enormous curtailment rates growing exponentially, as we can see here. And so that shows the overbuild of volatile renewables will only get us so far. And I think island and microgrids are a good forecast into the future there, where people have tried, and often it's not economical to just overbuild storage and solar to get to 100%. And so here, ocean energy, specifically wave power, can provide a great advantage, which we heard some of the benefits earlier. More dense, consistent, and predictable. And so this is kind of a global chart of ocean energy and wave power, and we can see that most of the energy is actually available offshore. Waves start to interact with the ocean floor as they reach the shoreline, and they actually lose their energy. So between offshore wave power and shoreline wave power, it's already half of the energy is lost. So if we really want to capture that power efficiently, we have to go out a little bit. And as mentioned in Europe, the trade association Ocean Energy Europe really forecasts that 30% of US electricity demand could be provided by wave power, as well as create a lot of jobs. And this is a great map from offshore wind. We're seeing here the different hubs of expertise, as well as the respective areas for wave and tidal energy. So there's an enormous opportunity to leverage these existing resources and supply chains and create a lot of more jobs. And that's really a summary on where we see offshore wind going. We heard some pretty large numbers for Germany in the panel earlier. As of now, globally planned, I found citable sources of about 120 gigawatt, and with a capacity factor of 40 to 50%, that means we have about 60 gigawatt of excess capacity, off cable capacity offshore. And so that's a pretty large number. That's an equivalent of 60 nuclear power plants. And so there's an enormous opportunity to use that unused electrical infrastructure. And so what we're seeing here is that wave power is really not competing, but complementary to wind and solar. We see the very stable production profile on a daily basis, and then kind of the counter cyclical on an annual basis, where wind and wave together really show great synergies. There was a Stanford study that found the joint capacity factor from these two combined annual profiles can really be significantly higher than a standalone wind farm. And no different than a wind turbine, for wave energy, the fundamental challenge is that we have to produce very efficiently, where most of the energy, most of the occurrence, so most waves happen from the 1 to 6 meter kind of range. But then every 50 years, we have these very large events. And so the wind industry has solved that problem with pitch and yaw control, the ability of the blades to turn out of the wind when the speed gets too large, the forces get too high. And so for wave power, no one really had found such a solution that has high performance where most of the energy is offshore, as well as then the ability to shut it down. And so in 2015, the Department of Energy started the US Wave Energy Prize to really start from a clean sheet and also have an apples to apples comparison with standardized testing and third-party testing requirements. And our team entered together with 92 teams, and we progressed over 4 life cycle stages. So they did in every of the 4 stages a life cycle assessment, and then down selected the best technologies and invited the best 9 to that third party testing in the US Navy tank. And at the end of the competition, we were able to achieve the highest performing device, as well as the device with the lowest extreme response to extreme waves. So our shutdown mechanisms really have been validated there. And with these great results, we won a follow-on award from the Department of Energy in 2017, then started to build our drivetrain in 19. With COVID-19, we got delayed significantly, but then we're finally able to manufacture shortly after. And then last September, we were finally able to install our pilot unit in San Diego, and that has been now operating for close to 8 months. In 2-3 days, it's going to be 8 months continuously without any downtime. And so we can see our technology floats like a vessel. So for installation, even small vessels can be used to tow it and install it. And then we operate fully submerged. That allows us to get really high efficiency, extracting energy from multiple degrees of freedom. And then at the same time being submerged, that allows us to use the water column to shelter from storms. So we can lower the system in the water column, and we have 2 additional mechanisms that are independent. And with that, we can become invisible in storm conditions. And that's exactly the 2 criteria that any renewable hydrokinetic device has to meet. High efficiency on the one hand, the other, the ability to shut it down in extreme events. And by that, the forces for these extreme events become in the same order of magnitude as your operational forces. And that really makes a lean CapEx low structure. And yet during these 8 months of testing, we're already months over. Initially, we were funded to test for 6 months, but because we had no downtime, we just kept running the system for now over 2 months and planning to continue operating a couple more months. And these were the main 6 areas we wanted to demonstrate and validate. And yeah, since November, we've been operating fully autonomously. So our autonomous controller we've adopted from the wind industry has the ability to shut down the system autonomously based on environmental parameters. And yeah, we don't need any additional wave buoys. It's really what we measure on the device informs the transition from operations into part load to then full shutdown and shelter in storms. And yeah, we've already experienced a scaled 50-year storm representative for the 50-year storm in Oregon, as well as a minor tsunami. And yeah, our system really has proven the survivability in all these conditions. As mentioned, we're coming initially out of UC Berkeley and the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab with support from Cyclotron Road and Activate, and then received support from Breakout Labs and many others. Just highlighting here Sustainable Ocean Alliance, which has been really a great partner for many years now. We were in the first cohort of solutions. And in total, we've secured now 19 million in contracts from the Department of Energy, including a latest award in January. And that allows us now to upscale the system to a second product line and demonstrate that in Oregon at the new test site. And we currently have a quite active dialogue with the private sector investments. So please feel free to reach out afterwards to learn more. And as mentioned, PuckWave is a new test facility in Oregon, rated at 20 megawatts, having 4 independent cables. And we're one of the companies lined up to deploy once that site is ready and it's fully pre-permitted and grid connected. So there's very low planning and security for us to be able to execute this project. And we can see this is about 7 miles offshore to reach the energetic area, as well as then stay out of fishing and crabbing activities. And so we're now planning to install and operate our larger system in the coming years. And so overall, we're seeing wave power being at an inflection point at the moment for technical, but also for commercial reasons. Technically, it's really the results of the wave energy price resulting into a viable, scalable, and then cost competitive solution. The cost of simulations has decreased substantially even over the last couple of years. The amount of time domain simulations, detailed analysis we can do now on board with our digital twin, only the former oil and gas industry was able to really afford this level of simulations. And now with open source tools we've adopted from the national labs and others really allow us to have that very high detailed set of simulations that really allow now to unlock that challenge between performance and shutdown. And then also facilities like advanced hardware in the loop, which we've adopted, really allow it to test equipment before even going out in open ocean. And as a result, we have that really high reliability of 99% uptime in the very first deployment we've executed. And from a commercial perspective, we're seeing the growth of offshore wind really being beneficial in Europe, but also in the US now. The financing landscape becomes more and more attractive for renewable energy adoption. And then also, facilities like PACWave and others in Europe that have already pre-permitted cable and really allow the early or quicker adoption of these technologies. And just to round up, the Ocean
Perfect.
Energy Association really targets about 500 megawatts of wave power by 2030. So that's a substantial percentage of the European electricity demand, and that can greatly help to reduce the reliability of imported fossil fuels from Eastern Europe, for example, as well as then help to transition to 100% renewables. And with that, I'm glad to answer some questions. And please visit us at cowwave.energy or reach out to Marcus at cowwave.energy.
Thank you so much, Marcus. It was really interesting to hear about the developments and also hear about the synergies of wind and solar. And you said a nice sentence that wave is not there to compete, but to be complementary to wind and solar. I really like that. And with that, we go to our last speaker, Anders Kuller from Floating Power Plant. He's the CEO. And Floating Power Plant is a Danish company that is taking combined wind and wave technology to market, and often also in combination with hydrogen. So Anders, I'm really happy that you're here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you see my slides? I hope you can.
Not yet.
Not yet. Let's see if I can share them again. Should be sharing now correctly.
I cannot see. Yes, it's loading. Yes, I can see the PowerPoint.
And I'll switch to. Okay.
Yes,
very good.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yep. So good afternoon, everybody. As introduced by Yuki, my name is Anders, and I run Floating Power Plant. And as you can see on the picture, we develop this technology that combines floating wind and wave, and sometimes often also integrate hydrogen. And it's exciting times. We are taking this into the commercial market, first contract secure. So it's a thing that is progressing. But just to give you a little bit of highlight of who we are, then we are a Danish company. We are based in Spain and the UK as well. We are owned by 240 shareholders, including the Danish utility Ørsted. We have raised over 20 million to get to where we are today. Most of that is equity. We don't do this alone. Like when see other people presenting here today have the same strategy. We have teamed up with some very large partners from Siemens Energy to Technip to Seafront, who are playing a valuable part in developing technology, but also in de-risking and building the value chain for commercial build-out. We have a very good board, and we will always have, but you can check that out on our homepage. So if you look at the technology in brief, then it consists of a floating platform. That's what you have up here. It's called a semi-submersible. It's the same way you make a stable oil and gas platform. We have just cost optimized it a lot, and then we build it out of panels. So the same way you build ships, which is cheap and fast and modular, meaning we can multi-source this. On that, you can put on a turbine, currently up to 15 megawatts, which is what we are modeling with and also have projects with. A platform like that cannot sail away, so you need a mooring system. Again, we use a oil and gas technology simplified a lot. It's a single point mooring, meaning the entire platform and wind turbine and wave power can be built at quayside, tested, commissioned, sailed out, connected. If something goes wrong, you can disconnect and tow it back. The power needs to go to shore, so that is via an electrical cable or to a off-grid installation. And then the last part is the wave power we are integrating into this platform. As you can see in the videos, we have tested this at half scale. So in an offshore environment, together with Ørsted, we have been grid connected with one of the wind farms. We extreme testing and a lot more, but I'll come back to that. So we are not new in this. We have been here for over 10 years, taking the technology from concept level to 4 offshore test phases in different stages to make sure that each of the technology elements are tested correctly. We do a lot of component testing, dry testing, and right now we're doing a lot of certification testing, validation testing together with clients for different projects. We're also building the biggest dry test facility for wave power in the world. And a key driver for us is when you develop technology, you need to have your client there, or at least a client representative. So we are working with companies from both oil and gas and the renewable market industry when we are doing stuff like this. When you combine wind and wave, then you get a unique market segment. To put it in perspective, the red area, that's where you have low water depth, good wind, and a decent, not too much wave power. That is where you see Denmark, Germany, Belgium, Holland, England pouring out offshore wind on fixed foundations by the gigawatts. But the rest of the world is different. So just looking at Europe, the orange, blue, and green areas, that is where you would need floating wind or wave power. In the orange areas, that's not us, there's good wind, but no waves. Where we bring significant competitive advantage to other floating wind or offshore wind is in the green and blue areas, where you have a lot of wind and a lot of wave, meaning you even have more wind, meaning even higher capacity factors on your wind turbine, and of course also having the wave resource on top. As has been said many times today, wind and wave are quite complementary because waves lack wind, and of course we are very, very focused at having a highly scalable and modular design. So most of our projects are in these green and blue areas. We are going to market in what we would call a multi-market segment approach. We are a technology provider, meaning we sell technology, and of course we are looking for the large grid-connected offshore wind farms, where our offering is very focused at power quality and cost of power, and the modularity that we can build them fast and cheap. But just as importantly, and over the last 3 years, what we are doing in what we call the Power to X market, which is small or mediums off-grid or weak grid projects like electrification of oil and gas or electrification of larger remote islands, is just growing rapidly. And that is because we work a lot with higher quality of power, which I will come back to in a moment. But if we look at just the floating wind market, I'm not going to go through all this, but just to take one, Scotland, I don't know if you're all aware, has just run the largest leasing round for offshore wind in the world. That is 25 gigawatts, where 15 gigawatts of that will be floating. To put that in perspective, then Scotland's current generation capacity, including everything, is 5 gigawatts. So a lot of this, if built out, will come in as hydrogen or other sources, just to take a few examples of what countries are doing here. When I say we do a lot of work in Power to X, also with oil and gas, that was actually coming from us presenting at an oil and gas conference where we showed our value proposition of more power, cheaper power, designed of proven systems, better power quality, accessible. And that actually led into a very large project for an oil and gas operator in Norway called Lundin, with support from Equinor and Ecowavepower and a lot of other companies, saying, how do you actually begin electrifying off-grid or weak grid applications, such as oil and gas facilities? And when we completed that project, we got a project for Total in Denmark. They challenged us even further, saying, well, if we are to electrify, if we are using renewable energy offshore, it has to have the same risk profile as a gas generator, or in other words, they wanted constant dispatchable renewable power. And to do that, we had to team up with TechnipFMC, which is a large global EPCI, but also one of the leading developers of hydrogen, offshore hydrogen in the world. And we made an integrated design where we, in our floater, so it's still wind and wave, have a deck with hydrogen, so we can produce hydrogen, store hydrogen, and make power from hydrogen again. So the principle is very simple. When there is wind and wave, you provide power to the asset. When there is too much wind and wave, you turn it into hydrogen. And when there is too little wind and wave, you turn it into power via fuel cell. But the key thing here is that we can store 300 megawatt hours of electricity on each platform. And that is, if you Google how much that is, if you're not quite sure, then it is bigger than some of the biggest grid-connected batteries in the world. And that is actually a game changer. And because of that, and what we have seen over the last 3 years, then our go-to-market strategy is very, very clear. We are working initially with electrification of oil and gas. We're working with electrification of remote islands, and we are already with Technip working on facilities designs for green hydrogen export. The reason for that is the projects are smaller, they're still big, there is limited competition, higher margins, and a very, very fast way to market, because we don't need a tariff and we don't need a grid connection. So this is, of course, very attractive to us. That said, we are still engaged in the floating offshore wind market, which I'll show you in a moment. But these projects are a lot more competitive, and we need to get things up in scale and down in cost to make sure that we win these contracts we have here. So what do we have under execution? Well, we are building a large commercial demonstration project in Spain with wind, wave, and hydrogen. That will be a global flagship. We are doing design projects for oil and gas operators. Our pipeline on top of that is quite large, just in the floating wind market. So grid-connected projects, we are engaged in 4 projects in Ireland and Scotland, all of close to a couple of gigawatts. And in the oil and gas market, we're working, in the Power-to-X market, with over 15 oil and gas operators now, and they are coming in faster than we can. And we're also working with 2 projects in remote islands. So we are growing and growing. We are hiring 8 people right now. So if anybody wants a job, please send us an application. But we're also at a place where we need to scale, and we need to scale fast or sell the company. So we are actually in the middle of a funding round where we are taking in a large global EPCI partner to be able to provide warranties and balance sheet. That is closing. They're putting in 16 million. And then we are in an equity round for just over 30 million, going quite well. We just started, and the first financial cornerstone of 10 million is already in place. So that will be closed within 3 months from today. And on top of that, we will be taking in some debt for the project in Spain, but we already have support from EIB and other entities for that. So I think the short version from us and what you have heard today is that the transition in the offshore environment, the marine environment, is coming. And I'm glad to see so many technologies presented today with different applications, because there is a multiple of green applications, and it's about finding the right segment for your technology and do that. And of course, if you want to know more about what we do, then of course reach out to us, and we will gladly share more. So I think that was it. Cool.
Thank you so much, Anders. It was really great to hear more about your routes to market. And this brings us to the end of this event. I am very happy that you were all here. Thank you so much. And also very happy that we from Dutch Marine Energy Center were able to help organize this event and moderate it. If you're a developer or a policymaker, an investor, or a big corporation that wants to get involved in marine energy, you know where to find us. We have a booth here, and it can be reached on DutchMarineEnergyCenter.com. And with that, I give the floor back to Ludivine for the final conclusion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yuki, and thank you to all our panelists and speakers. I think that it was quite impressive, the different solution we had at the end. I think that if we want to go further, we have to make more connections. So I warmly invite you to connect to the people around you, or with this event, for example. But I think we need to talk more about this kind of technology and how we can develop this technology on our countries and in Europe, as Irina said it. So thank you so much for being with us tonight. And I hope to see you on our next event in June. You will soon receive an invitation. No worry for that. And yep, thank you SOA also for organizing and gather all these people. You're quite amazing, and thank you for your presentation. Have a good night.
Thank you, Ludivine.
Bye.
Thank you so
everyone.
much, all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.